All right, let's get it. Contrary to popular belief, numbers do lie. Today's topic will be on statistics. I'm one to believe that while numbers don't actually lie, they don't actually tell the whole truth. I was always taught that a half-truth is also called a lie. And statistics are just that, half-truths. I understand that there has to be something to measure as far as data goes. I also understand that one can make a statistic support whatever argument he or she is trying to make. Like always, I'm going to present a few examples to make my argument. Now, I'm a huge sports fan, so let's begin there. In basketball, there's a stat called field goal percentage. It measures the number of shots made versus the number of shots attempted. MJ, we all know him, right? His career field goal percentage is .497. Rounded up is 50%. That's a good stat. Let's compare his percentage to, let's say, Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq's career field goal percentage is .582, or 58%. That's better than MJ's. So based on these numbers, one can conclude that Shaq was a better shooter than Michael Jordan, right? What these numbers don't tell you is most of Shaq's shot attempts were layups and dunks. MJ, he shot from all over the court. Now this isn't a diss Shaq video, so Shaq fans, don't come at me. This video is to illustrate the fallacy of certain statistics. Scientifically speaking, when collecting and measuring data, in order for it to be factually accurate, your methods or parameters for your experiment or project should be the same every time. If it's not, then those variables should be included and mentioned in your analysis. When it comes to basketball, the only shot that's the same for everyone is a free throw. So the only stat that is a true measure as it relates to basketball is the free throw percentage. Too many variables affect other statistics. While I could mention some of those variables, I don't want this video to be too long, and I have other examples to discuss. Let's look at football. Running backs are generally evaluated on yards per carry and total yards gained for a season. These are also horrible stats in my opinion. If you're a running back that plays for a team that has a pass-oriented offense, you're not going to get enough attempts to meet the standard, which is 1,000 yards for a season. That's what the good backs kind of average. What if your offensive line sucks? No running back, with the exception of Jim Brown or maybe Barry Sanders, can be successful without an offensive line. So this measure is really based upon someone else's ability, right? Now some might say, why does it matter? Be selfless instead of selfish. Sacrifice for the good of the team and all of that kind of stuff. Well, when you enter into negotiations for a new contract, the main bargaining chip is going to be individual stats. That's why it matters. In the end, it's all about money. Otherwise, why keep stats? It's fun to talk about who's better than who and use stats to support your choice, but for owners, that's how they decide who gets paid. Let's transition to the real world. Let's say I work at a warehouse or a distribution fulfillment center. Let's say they use lines per hour to measure productivity. And I'll come back to productivity in a second. I might get assigned a 5-line order. Each line represents a different product. A line can be one case, up to 25 cases or more. Sorry for getting so technical, but this is the only way that I can explain it. My coworker may get assigned a 100-line order, all one case per line. My order is 20 cases per line. While we both picked 100 cases, my coworker's line per hour is going to be a lot higher than my total. Was he really more productive? Does it make sense? Is the picture beginning to come into view? Let's say two people work at a processing center, data entry. Operator 1 has a global account where they have one customer but 20 files a day. Very routine files. The data hardly ever changes. Operator 2 has 8 local accounts. Each has about 2 files a day, which brings his or her total to 16 files a day. And they're hardly ever the same. For the month, Operator 1 has a file count of 400. Operator 2 file count for the month is 320. Little side note, a month is based on 20 working days. So who worked harder? Based on the file count alone, Operator 1, right? Or am I? Operator 2 actually serviced more customers, and the argument can be made that he or she worked harder because his or her files were more labor intensive. Right? Does it make sense? Let's take a look at these charts on the screen. Now I know that this information is a little dated, but still it's over a 30-year span, so it's a lot of data. So the chart on the left represents productivity versus wages. So let's take a look at that. So the red line represents the average income of the top 1%. So just looking at that, over a 30-year period, the top 1%, their wages have increased 240%. Now the yellow line, or green, it represents productivity. So over a 30-year span, productivity has increased 80%. The blue line at the bottom represents overall wages. So over a 30-year period, wages on average have increased about 10%. Yep, I'm pausing so you can let that sink in. Let's look at the chart on the right. The orange line represents productivity. The dark blue line represents the average wage. And the light blue line, it represents minimum wage. So as you can see, productivity has increased over a 30-year span, and this is relative to Massachusetts, but it's pretty much the same everywhere, right? So productivity has increased over 100%. Yet when you look at the wage, it's right on par with the other chart, about 10%. And when you look at the minimum wage, well, it sort of speaks for itself. So what does this all boil down to? Money. Money, money, money. Let's look at polling. In the last presidential election, all the data, all the stats had Hillary projected to be the next president. They were all wrong. I get a chuckle out of polls, whether it's Quinnipiac or whoever, when they always report things like 45% of Americans are against the Mueller report, or 51% believe that we should have universal health care. It always makes me laugh, because I always think, who participates in these polls? How can they be accurate? I don't know about you, but I don't know anyone that's ever participated in one of these polls. So truly, how accurate can they be? How about my new favorite statistic dealing with CV-19? They keep reporting that the number of cases are leveling off. It's based on faulty data. The majority of Americans haven't been tested. It's been reported that you can't even get a test until you show symptoms. Experts say that you can be infected at least 4 to 5 days before showing any symptoms. They also say that some people can be asymptomatic, which means they may not show symptoms at all. In the meantime, they can still spread the virus. Hey, did you know that CV-19 is racist? Apparently, it's killing black people at an alarming rate. What they don't report is the figure is based upon a small sample of hospitals and counties that's recording race as opposed to overall death totals. In my opinion, whoever is collecting the data may or may not have an agenda. But that's another story. Socioeconomic factors probably play a large role in the why CV-19 is supposedly so harmful to black people. You know, like underinsured, no access to health care, etc., etc. So let me circle back to sports. There was a movie dedicated to advanced statistics or analytics called Moneyball. The main guy basically built his team based on analytics. My question is, was it really successful? If the goal is to win it all, then it failed because the Oakland A's have not won a pennant since 1989. Well, I think I'll leave it there for now. I think I've made a pretty convincing argument. So if you find me entertaining, check out my original short stories on Patreon. It's only $1.50 to join. The link is in the description box below. Also like and subscribe so you won't get fear of missing out on our future videos. Well, thanks for your time. Peace.